Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Fortum. I'm the host of this podcast, Doers Within Emerging Markets. And I just want to share my experience with using Anchor so far. When the pandemic started, I thought about starting a podcast. And the whole idea was to bring in some really amazing folks that are doing some great work in their respective industries within the emerging markets. And the Anchor platform really helped me get the word out there and also just make it a lot easier for me to invite the guest and just share the amazing experiences they've had and the amazing work they're doing in their respective industries within the emerging markets. So it's pretty fun. You don't even worry about the technical part of making a podcast. You actually just focus more on the content. And Anchor has done it really well for me. So I will highly encourage anybody who is trying to start a podcast to try to use just check out Anchor, and I think you won't regret it. I'm not a technical person, but if you listen to these episodes that I've been publishing so far, it seems like I know what the technical part of it, but Anchor helps you take care of the technical part, and you just focus on the content. So feel free to check it out. I highly encourage you. Won't regret it, and it's right there. You don't pay anything, so. In times like this, I think starting a podcast and getting the word out there, irrespective of what you're doing, will be a really great experience. So thank you guys for listening to my episodes. Please check out Anchor and you will have a great time. So cheers, guys, and see you guys next episode. Thanks. Hi, Vaidehi. Thanks for being on this podcast, Doers Within Emerging Markets podcast. And today we are with Vaidehi. She is a Babson MBA student. I think it's a second year, beginning in August, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to talk to her. I've actually heard a lot about her from one of the professors that I took a course with, an independent study with. And from there, I heard so many amazing things about her as well as her company, Busy Boda. But I think there's a lot of more interesting things about her. And this podcast, this episode specifically, is to learn a lot about who she is, but also what she's doing, her aspirations, and how she's contributing to the local economy in Kenya, as well as building her company, as well as an internship that she just recently started. So welcome.
Thanks, Jacob. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm honestly, genuinely, I'm super excited just to hear your story and also to just hear how you came about with the concept of Busy Boda and all your entrepreneur endeavors. So just to start, and just please tell us a little bit about yourself and just your background, your family background, how you came to, and how was it, how was the experience? Grew up in Kenya. We'd just love to share a little bit about that, if that's okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Right. So, luckily throughout my life, I've been fortunate enough to kind of live and study in so many different countries. So I was born in India, after which my dad actually got a job in Kenya. So we all moved to Kenya a few months after that. And that's where I kind of lived. I was brought up. I've lived most of my life in Kenya. I finished high school there as well. And whilst I was in Kenya, we also briefly moved to Tanzania for 3 years. So I was in Tanzania for 3 years as well. That's where I finished year 6 to year 9, and then I came back to Kenya. And I finished high school in Kenya, and then I went to the UK to study chemical engineering at the University of Sheffield. And so growing up in Kenya, I kind of always knew I wanted to give back to the community that I had grown up in. And that kind of happened sooner than expected. And I went back home after graduating in 2017, and I started working on my startup alongside my brother. So it's called Busy Boda. And Busy Boda is a motorcycle taxi hailing application. So we do both passenger and delivery services. And right now we have over 400 riders on our platform. And the idea of this was just basically to increase the motorcycle riders' daily income from $10 a day to $15 a day, right?
Yes.
We wanted to improve the lives of these riders by providing them access to value-added services as well. So you'll find that a lot of these riders live below the poverty line. They do not have insurances because they can't pay for it. And these are the kind of problems that we wanted to help them overcome. So one of the things is, other than providing the app for them to connect with customers that they would otherwise have had no connection with, what we've also done is we've partnered with one of the largest insurance providers in Kenya to provide these riders with affordable pay-as-you-go insurance packages. So what they do is they pay us a deposit and then they pay for the remainder of the insurance product over 2 months. We also want to help these riders scale their business and become micro-entrepreneurs. And we do this by providing them with loans so they can invest in additional motorcycles and scale their business. So that's essentially what Busy Boda is and a little bit about my background.
That's a great summary. I think we'll get into Busy Boda a little bit later, and it's incredible. And I mean, just from a entrepreneur standpoint, I think you fill in all the spaces that you build a business that not only the customers who are these drivers, these Boda riders, you kind of fill in all the spaces, the insurance, making sure that you're building an ecosystem, right? To some degree, if I understand clearly. I think kind of hopefully what I'm also trying to get out of this episode is also to learn about, what were the a little bit of the childhood experiences that made you start thinking in a direction like this. It might have not been obvious once we're growing up, but I'm just curious, was there anybody or someone in your community, or maybe your mom or your dad, that shaped your perspective of how you think about just giving back to the community as an entrepreneur, or building a platform like this that empowers people to become micro-entrepreneurs? Was there anything, just based on interactions or exposures that you had growing up that kind of shaped who you are today?
Yeah. Of course. So, I can say the biggest role model in my entrepreneurial journey has been my father, for both my brother and I. My mother, of course, for supporting us throughout the thing, but my father is the one who started our family business back in Kenya as well, back in 2006. It's in the renewable energy sector. And I have kind of seen him build the business from a room in our apartment to what it is today. Right? So firsthand, I was able to witness the impact that he's created, both on the environment and within the community, by creating so many jobs. And I always kind of looked up to that, and I still look up to him. And he's definitely been the biggest mentor in our journey. We've seen how many lives he's impacted. And, I think growing up in Kenya, you realize that there's such a massive income gap. And my brother and I have kind of witnessed it from the very beginning, right? Since we were kids, we've been able to see this massive income gap and things like that. And we've always wanted to kind of contribute to that and change that, and hopefully try and reduce this gap, bridge this gap, which is what we've kind of always known was our end goal. So I kind of wanted to take all of my international education and bring it back and start something at home to really give back to the community that I had grown up in, and that has kind of always been a childhood dream.
Yeah, that's so inspiring, and thanks for sharing that. I think kind of the vision of what hopefully the message I'm trying to pass across with this podcast, in addition to building successful companies, I think sometimes we have to go back and think of who are the people that kind of shaped our mindset to where we are, right? We stand on the shoulders of giants, and it might not necessarily be a nuclear family like your mom and dad, but it can also be just people around your community that
Exactly. And like growing up in Kenya, like I just feel like because we're firsthand able to see the economic inequality from the very young age, it's whether through its increasing crime rates or increasing homeless people that cannot afford access to healthcare. This is something that we were able to see, every single day of our lives. And because of this, already that this is something that we want to change. And that's how like we've been shaped throughout our lives.
Amazing. That's really amazing. And just, I mean, this is a little bit of a sidetrack. Why did you decide to study chemical engineering?
Good question. I get asked that all the time. But like I said, so our family business is in the renewable energy space, right?
Okay.
So I was always inspired by what my dad does, and like the way the business is kind of catering for the environment and reducing the harmful effects of fossil fuels on the environment. So that was something that I always found very interesting, and I loved chemistry. So I really, really liked chemistry. So I was like, I want to, and you know what, like I was too young to decide what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So this was like in year 12, we had like a few months to decide, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do like as a profession. So I was like, I really like chemistry. It's one of my favorite subjects. Like, how do I integrate that with what I want to do for the rest of my life? And I know chemistry, like doing chemical. So my two options were chemistry or chemical engineering, right? So I was like, chemistry might be narrowing it down too much, and it might just like reduce, my opportunities in the future. Whereas chemical engineering, I was like, it looks at everything holistically. So I was like, I would have some engineering knowledge. I would get to do what I love, which is chemistry. And then also it looks at like renewable energy and fossil fuels and things like that as well. So the effect of fossil fuels in the environment, so all of that. So I was like, you know what, in terms of like just a long-term outlook, chemical engineering makes more sense. So that's why I kind of there's no like perfect answer to this. It was just what I felt in the moment.
No, I think actually, I mean, to add on to that, I think like engineering just as a profession, it makes it very analytical, right? Right? And I think it also become very practical, but you can also be as ambitious as well, right?
Definitely.
So I think the concepts can be transferable to how you build Busy Boda. That's pretty cool. And just in terms of how is your, you've talked about your dad. Did your brother, you started Busy Boda with your brother, right?
Yes.
How, just growing up with your brother, how was the interactions? Was it a loving relationship in terms of like you guys did things together all the time, or was it competitive? How did that shape your interaction with him as a co-founder, but also as how you interact with others in building the company? Just curious about that.
Right. That's a good question. So, no, with him, it was never competitive. I was the elder sister, so it was never competitive. It was always like kind of like looking out for him and, helping him and looking for things that are in his best interest as well. So it was very like a loving relationship all the time throughout our childhood. Obviously, the massive fights would happen, but like in terms of the whole relationship, it was a very loving, caring relationship. And as we got older, also like we started to realize how our strengths are different to each other, and like we complement each other's skills. So for example, he is more of like a big thinker, and he has like big goals for the company, and big thinker, and like all these like different ideas. He's more of like the innovator type, right? Always has like crazy ideas. And then there's me, who's more like has the operational kind of skill set. So like I do like I use, this is even before we started running Busy Boda and stuff, but we kind of started to realize the kind of patterns that we had, right? So I was more of like the day-to-day like perfection kind of person, whereas he was like the big crazy idea person. And then I was really good at like sales, like as growing up, like speaking to people and like, building relationships and like selling to people came really easily to me. Whereas for him, it was more like finance and like numbers and all of that as well. So like quite early on, like in high school, we did realize that our skills complemented each other. We had different strengths, but it was never in terms of like, oh, working together or becoming co-founders. That was just kind of something that happened, right? And we didn't think too much about, oh, what's our relationship like, or whatever. It kind of just fell into us running the business together. But what's interesting is that obviously we did a lot of research before and stuff, but like he was in his first year when he decided to kind of take the leap of faith and just decided to go ahead with the app and get it developed from developers. So like he was in his first year of university and I was in my final year. So it was just a step that he had taken. It was kind of a personal project that he was working on. And that kind of became very interesting as we started talking about it more. And we had a bit of a not so great experience with our first set of developers. So like the first people that we outsourced our app to, they took really long. Firstly, they took like 6 months to just give us our first prototype. And that wasn't even up to mark. Then all these changes that we had to make, they would make half of them and then not make the other half. And we had a lot of problems. We lost a lot of money, right? So then we didn't have a great experience with that. Then he was like, Vaidehi, like, why don't you go back home and start this and run it, because it's important for someone to be in the physical location to really start something. So I was like, yeah, I love this. I love the concept. We've talked about it so much. I'm going to go back and start it, right? So then that's how we kind of started it. And that's how we decided to get into this together. And again, when I started it, he was in university for 2 years. Yeah. And then when he came back after he graduated, I was leaving for an MBA. So like we only worked together for like a few months, physically together for a few months. So so we still haven't explored, the whole concept of like working together all the time for like months on end. But from when we do work together, it works well.
That's pretty cool. I think something that's really amazing, and just thanks for really elaborating on that. I think something that's really amazing is that I think for every success, just looking from companies here in the US, one example is Apple, for example, right? So Steve Jobs and Steve Wexner. Like Steve was more of the ambitious, big thinker, salesperson, good speaker, the marketing guru to some extent. Exactly. And you had Wexner was more of the day-to-day, the coding expert. So there are a bunch of other companies that has the same analogy. And it's really cool that it was your brother.
Yeah, exactly. It worked in our favor.
It worked in your favor. So, and I think maybe the physical physical distance might be a challenge, but the fact that you grow up with him, so you kind of know his values, what limits he has and how far he can go. I think that can help, right, with the physical distance. So I think that worked well for you, for both of you guys.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm just going now into Busy Boda because you just talked about, how you guys got involved in it. One thing I really found interesting, and I know this podcast about emerging markets and doers in emerging markets. I think one thing that's also very that makes us human, but also shows that the ecosystem in emerging markets is not as straightforward as it looks. And one thing that I was really hoping you could share was a little bit more about the failure that occurred before you made it. And I think it's important for the audience and for the audience and the people listening to share a little bit about how you felt within that 6 months when things were not working, and the setbacks you had, and how you got the mental will to continue going, like to take that leap of faith and say, you know what, I should go to India. Was it India or Kenya? You should India to try again, go down, meet the coders there, and actually work it again. So can you share a little bit more about that 6 months period, and right after that when you guys relaunched the second?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, the first set of developers was vetted by my brother, and he didn't go to India, so it was all happening online. He was still in his first year of university. So he vetted them and he decided to go ahead with this, and like we didn't even know about it. He's like, I'm putting my savings into it, I'm doing this, and it was just something that he was very passionate about. And then so the app developers developed a product, and like we were like, okay, this is good, but like we're not happy with it. These are the changes that we need to make, as we had discussed, and things like that. And that's when we kind of got involved, because he's like, look, like this is what's happened, this is how much money I've put in. Can you please advise me, or can you and dad please like speak to the developers as well and see how we can move things forward? And then that's kind of how we got involved, and we were like, okay, this is not what we expected when we signed the contract. These were the terms that were agreed upon. And again, working with two different time zones and working with two different cultures, it's very different, right? It's not as easy as it seems. So then there was a lot of miscommunication. Then they sent us a second version, and again, that wasn't up to mark. And after that, they kind of just stopped answering our calls. We stopped answering, and we had already made the first set of payment as well. So like they stopped answering, and then the only people losing were us, right? And then we lost money, but then I think we were very demotivated initially. We're like, this is only just the beginning. Like, where do we go from here, right? But what really helped is my dad's journey, right? Like, because he's an entrepreneur himself. So we've watched him on his difficult days as well. We've seen him on his tough days, and we've seen him spring back up. And like, his motivation was great for us, because he was like, this is just the beginning, this is nothing. So you're in for a hell of a journey. So like, you can't stop here. And then it also kind of took us back to why we started in the first place. We were like, look, it's important to kind of reflect back on what was the importance of starting this in the first place, like what made us start. And we looked back at that, and we were like, okay, we have to get back up on our feet, and we have to do something. We did this to create change in the community. We still can, and we've just got to jump right back up and just learn from our mistakes. And I guess one of the things that we realized at that point was a setback, or that caused the failure, is the no human interaction with the people that we were working with. So the next time, because I was already at home, we were traveling to India again. So then that's when I decided to schedule a bunch of meetings with various different developers in India. And then I met each one of them, looked at the size of the company, looked at the kind of expertise that they had, and based on that picked a different company, and that we're now still working with. And they've been great for us. And the reason, I'm sure it's obvious, but the reason that we decided to keep going back to India is because we are a startup, we're bootstrapped. So we've been trying to obviously find any and all ways to save money, right? And like, with the experience and expertise that these Indian companies come with, there's like no match on cost. So that was the decision that we had to take, and working with people from a different country is the decision that we had to take in those circumstances.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I think I do work with some entrepreneurs in Uganda, and man, it's just like time response and follow up and quality of work and just cultural differences, time difference. It's just like, you need to have a vision. But I think what you actually mentioned, I was really interested, is you always need to go back to why you started something. Right? And if you don't have that focus, you can really shut everything down.
Exactly.
And just like, at the comfort of, both of us are fortunate to be in the US, having the Babson education. You might just decide to just work for a US company for the long run. But I think that's the fact that you said, you guys went back to why you had to start Busy Boda and helping the community, is something so important that hopefully everybody who is trying to go back to Africa, and Africans diaspora, or people want to start business in Africa, they have to really understand that the purpose of doing it is more important than maybe the economic profit, which is as important, but that is something that keeps you grounded. So thanks so much for sharing that. Just going into, so I know we are in a pandemic now, and COVID-19 changed the way businesses have been run, the decision-making processes. and how we just interact with our customers. So how has that been for Busy Boda? As you know, there's been lockdowns, social distancing. What has been the decisions you've made as a co-founder of the company to help the company stay afloat?
Right.
So can you share a little bit about that and how you're surviving, but hopefully thriving in this environment? Because I think Busy Boda has a very important role to play in helping the economy get out of this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's definitely been tough for us, like it has been for other businesses.
Yeah.
It's especially harder because you can't really social distance from your passenger on a motorcycle.
Yes.
So that has been a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, because of the social distancing rules, we've had to stop all our passenger rides. So right now we're only doing courier services. And of course, but then at the same time, we have to understand that motorcycle riders and a lot of the Kenyan population that live below the poverty line operate in a very hand-to-mouth fashion, right? So going even just a day or two without any income is especially tough for them. So rightly, like you rightly pointed out, we have a big kind of responsibility to keep catering for our motorcycle riders. So we're trying to make up for all the lost rides by increasing the number of partnerships that we have with courier, like B2B businesses and courier clients, such as pharmacies, supermarkets, and other kinds of businesses who still do deliveries, who still do sending parts from one place to the other, and even shops that are still selling but selling online and need a delivery partner. So now we're trying to increase those kind of partnerships, so our riders we can help our riders kind of compensate for the lost passenger rides currently happening. And I just feel like now more than ever, these motorcycle riders need us, and we're trying to kind of do everything that we can to ensure that they're not heavily impacted. So this is just one of the major things, and we have been able to gain a lot of partnerships with pharmacies now. So that is something that has kind of worked well for us. We're also now looking at partnering with e-commerce businesses, more e-commerce businesses. So the number of deliveries that we do also are ramped up. We've had to take the tough decision of stopping passenger rides, but that's just something that we have to do, and we have to find creative ways of running the business without that. Then of course we still have the other revenue models, which is of course the insurance and the giving loans to motorcycle riders. So it started off as giving loans to motorcycle riders to scale their business and invest in additional motorcycles. But now we've also over time realized that they want small loans, like $100 loans, and just to, maybe their motorcycle has broken down, so they need something with that. Maybe they need to send their children to school, but they don't have upfront money to pay the fees, things like that. So they need those small loans. So now we've kind of opened up to that as well. We of course give those loans based on their history with us and how loyal they've been to us, and with customer service that they've provided. There's like certain criteria, but then that is also something that we've started doing to help them during this time, and just kind of get through their day-to-day activities.
That's kudos to you and the team for coming up with kind of pivoting to B2B for most part, but also transitioning into something that not only makes your business do well, but also help people get the medication that they need.
Exactly.
So that's amazing. I think one thing that actually is very interesting is that when you mentioned earlier in our conversation was the insurance. How does it work? You said you partner with insurance company, or you are the insurance company? Like, is it a subset of Busy Boda?
Right. So we have partnered with an insurance company.
Okay.
It's called APA Insurance. It's one of the largest insurance providers in Kenya.
Yes.
And we wanted to partner with a well-reputed insurance company because after talking to multiple riders, what we've realized is that a lot of insurance companies take advantage of these riders because of their lack of education, the lack of income, things like that. So insurance is mandatory in Kenya, but you will still find that a lot of motorcycle riders do not have insurance and they ride without it because they can't afford it. It's simple reason, they cannot afford it. And one of the reasons that we even started Busy Boda is in our initial days when we were talking to riders, we heard about a rider's story, and he was like, yeah, this business was great for me when it was thriving, but now things went south. And we're like, what happened? And he got into an accident. He already had an insurance cover. He went to his insurance company to ask for compensation. He was promised a compensation of 80% of his value of this motorbike, which was okay. And but then 3 months later, he still hadn't been compensated. 4 months later, he went back and he finally got the compensation, but that was only 30% of the value of the motorbike. So for people like that who really have no other source of income, this is a real big problem. And that's why we were like, imagine this is one motorcycle rider. Imagine how many other riders this happens to. So this is something that really got us into starting Busy Boda in the first place, but then also took us on the insurance route because we wanted them to have access to good services, right? Exactly. So, and that's why we wanted to partner with a really well-reputed insurance firm as well. So that's how it kind of started. And what we've done is our insurance is one of the most affordable in the country. And we have bundled 3 different insurance products into one. So now the rider gets comprehensive insurance, third-party insurance, and personal accident as well, so in case something happens to him in an accident, and hospitalization cash. So what this means is in case he is in hospital for over 48 hours, he will be reimbursed for all his loss of income starting those 48 hours to up to 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's kind of, put this together. So it's a really great package. And then they pay $80 annually. So $80 for the year for this whole package. And what we do is we tell them to pay us a deposit of $20, right? And then we keep this insurance activated for 2 months, right? And then they have 2 months to make either daily or monthly payments to us. Daily or weekly payments, Daily or weekly payments to us. And they pay off the whole $80 and they get a renewed sticker for the whole year.
Wow. I actually like this can be it's a... But I'm trying to think about post-COVID war, and this can be like a big business out of Busy Boda. And you cannot just only serve.
Because insurance is mandatory, they need it, especially if they run into someone else, and the third party, they've run into someone's car, they need to pay for the car damages. They don't have that money. So it's very important for them to have this product, and I think this it's benefited a lot of the riders who have gotten into those small accidents and small things like that. So this is a really great product, and the most important thing is it's affordable. Again, you pay in installments, which is great for them.
Exactly. My next question was like, how do you think the future of the Kenyan market would be like, or just Africa in general, with what has happened to COVID? What is your just your opinion on that, and how do you think from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but maybe also from an investor standpoint, if you have interacted with investors prior to have invested in Busy Boda, what do you think the dynamics would be like? What do you think they mean? Like what would be like the differences in terms of like what people prioritize more? Will it be, human capital, or maybe social capital, or adding more environmental value to society rather than just economic profit only? What is your take on that, or what have you been thinking?
In terms of just from an investment point of view, right? Investor point of view. We know Kenya is an emerging market, and we know that Africa is the new exciting investment for emerging market investors. And a lot of people are definitely now, most of the investors that I have interacted with are looking for social impact aspect of any business. Like economic responsibility, yes, I mean, economic impact is fine, but like, what is the social responsibility? What are you doing to create that social impact? So I think that still stands, and it will continue to stand. One of your, I think previously you said, what do you think the future of a market like Kenya is?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yes.
I think it's important to understand that Kenya has moved forward in the right direction. Like the adopting of technology has gone up insanely in Kenya, and that's what makes it such a thriving country and such a thriving economy right now, and would attract more investors, right? Like technology right now is key. So I see a huge potential in Kenya, especially within the agri-tech and microfinance industries. And because a massive portion of the population now owns a smartphone, and technology development has gained a lot of momentum. So for example, like through innovative microfinancing technologies, people are able to receive loans within just 20 seconds, right? And these are people that need that money immediately. It's like $50 that they need, $20 that they need, and they're able to get it through all these microfinancing apps now. So like technology has really shaped where the country is heading to. We see a major company in Kenya called Safaricom, which is a part of Vodafone, and they pioneer mobile payments and related services. And we are seeing that model now replicated in all other African countries as well. Mobile money, M-Pesa, I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I've heard of M-Pesa.
People can transfer money from one place to the other without even having a smartphone. So I feel like this is, you know, emerging markets, and Kenya especially is a great place for investors to invest, just because we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that. Actually, I studied Safaricom in a case study in business school. So it was quite a case study. And I mean, Duncan was in my class. I think he was in that class. So he talked briefly about that in Kenya. So very interesting. And just to end with, so what is your, I mean, you are one thing that I really advocate for, and we have this weekly get together where we talk about interesting facts about Africa. It's part of Germany corporate group. It's called Germany Inclusive, where people come together and we talk about interesting trends in Africa and what has to happen for things to move in the right direction in Africa. And one of the things that we talked about in this last Friday's conversation yesterday, and after next week, is women entrepreneurship in Africa, and some of the challenges and strengths that women face in Africa, but also what are the opportunities for the future for women entrepreneurs. And I think one thing that I found very interesting about you is how you built this company at a relatively young age, and how you're able to be a role model. I think potentially you'd be a very good role model for younger girls and even older women on how you navigated or how you found the right resources and the right people to build a company with. So my last question is like, what's your advice for women entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in general, who are starting a business in Africa, or who already run a business in Africa, but are faced with challenges like, you know, access to finance or capital, you know, the paternalistic culture that exists in Africa, and all that, you know. I mean, entrepreneurship by itself is hard. Yeah. And having all these other challenges can make it, 10 times harder or 20 times harder. So what would you say to a woman entrepreneur, or even any entrepreneur that is trying to start a business or is running a business? And what will you tell him or her to feel motivated, stay engaged, and continue with the hustle or the business such that they can be as successful as Busy Boda or any other companies that they look up to? Right.
I'm just going to start by probably saying, in general, for aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, this is something I say all the time to everyone. my general advice for any entrepreneur would be that don't wait for a perfect moment or a perfect idea to do something or take the leap of faith, right? Like take a moment and make it perfect. That's what I always say. Like get started, because I feel like most entrepreneurs are afraid of getting started. They're uncertain about whether their idea will have a successful outcome. They're afraid of what people will say. And if you are able to kind of overcome this initial hesitation, then overcoming any other obstacle in your way throughout your entrepreneurial journey will be easy. Like you just need to get started.
That's true.
And I just feel like your idea or your concept or your business model changes so much along the way. Once you put your product or service out there and get feedback, it'll never be exactly what it was on day one, right? So that's why you need to stop worrying about having the perfect product or the perfect idea from the very beginning, because it's going to iterate, it's going to change so much that like you just need to go out there and take that leap of faith. So like in general, my advice to any aspiring entrepreneur is that, right? So whether female or male, anyone, like just take the first step. In terms of, again, like access to finance and issues like that, I would say, like for me, what has been great is like talking to anyone and everyone about your business or your idea. A lot of times what happens is that we're afraid people will steal our idea, or we're afraid people will do the same thing as us. But you know what? It's not that easy, right?
True.
It's really
Definitely not.
So you just have to share your idea, share your thoughts with people, get feedback. The more people you talk to, the more connections you make, the more feedback you can get, and that's really how you can grow your business or scale your business or move in the right direction. Be connected to people that can help you get access to finance, and so there's just that. So I just think another key thing is like, don't be afraid of sharing your idea with as many people as possible. Like do it. So that I think is something that I've learned a lot more after coming to Babson as well, and I've really seen the value in that, because you think you know it all, but you really don't. Exactly. You don't know. Like there's so many people who have so many different perspectives, different ideas based on their backgrounds, and like that really helps shape you and your thought process as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my last question was to ask, how has Babson shaped your entrepreneurial mindset? I kind of answered it already. It's like you read my mind. But thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful that you're able to share all what you shared today. I do think there's a lot more in store for you and Busy Boda and how you're going to transform Africa. I think 20 years from now, you'll be on Forbes magazine somewhere.
That is the dream. I hope so.
Yeah, running $1 billion business. But I do see that there's a lot of potential in Busy Boda, and there's also a lot in store in you that you give out to communities in Kenya and across Africa. I mean, and other emerging markets. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Thanks for the advice, and I'm 100% sure that the listeners will be more than excited, but just like inspired by your story. So thank you for it.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Jacob. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I did enjoy it too. So thank you, everyone. This is Vaidehi. She's the co-founder of Busy Boda in Kenya, and it's awesome to have you.
Great. Thanks very much.
Okay. Bye, guys.